The official press agency of China asked the question, what we're looking at here are ancestors or, in fact, extraterrestrials.
The face has eyes that protrude 4 inches forward. Not stylized, not symbolic. 4 measured inches, as if the sculptor was copying something real. No other Bronze Age civilization on Earth made anything like it. And when Grok AI ran a full analysis on every piece of evidence from this site, the metallurgy, the altar, the ivory, the 6 new pits China just excavated, it came back with a finding that 3 separate research teams refused to publish. This is Sanxingdui, and the official story doesn't survive contact with the data. Before we get into the data, if this is the kind of investigation that keeps you up at night, subscribe now. We run Grok AI analysis on the ancient sites that mainstream archaeology has no answer for. New video every week. Now, the masks. Look at a photograph of any Bronze Age mask from anywhere in the world. Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Aegean. Every face is the same. Eyes flat against the surface, realistic or stylized, but flat. Now look at Sanxingdui. The eyes project forward, up to 4 inches from the face surface. Cylindrical, like the compound eyes of an insect, scaled up to human size. Grok cross-referenced this specific feature against 847 documented Bronze Age artistic traditions from every inhabited continent. One match across the entire ancient world. One culture produced eyes that geometrically match Sanxingdui's design parameters. The Olmec civilization, Mesoamerica, the wrong side of the planet. 2 completely isolated civilizations. No possible contact. Same period. Same obsession, same impossible eyes. Grok's first assessment: these eyes are not artistic exaggeration. They are a representational choice. Someone was depicting something specific. And that raises the question that every official report on this site quietly avoids. What exactly were they looking at? July 1986. A drainage ditch. Sichuan province, southwest China. A construction worker's shovel hits something hard. He digs. Bronze. More bronze, then a face staring back at him from 3,000 years ago. Within days, archaeologists had uncovered 2 massive sacrificial pits. Thousands of artifacts, jade, gold, ivory, bronze figures taller than a man. The lead archaeologist, Chen Xiandan, said publicly afterwards, "We had no framework. There was nothing to compare this to." He wasn't being modest. He was describing something the entire field of archaeology had no category for. A civilization more technically sophisticated than anything else in Bronze Age East Asia, with no writing, no successor culture, and no explanation for how it ended. Just faces, thousands of faces. All of them are wrong. Here's the problem. Before 1986, the history of ancient China was settled. The Shang dynasty, 1600 BC, was the origin. Oracle bones, writing, bronze, a civilization that evolved gradually. Sanxingdui dates to the exact same period and shares almost nothing with the Shang. Different art, different religion, different metallurgy, different everything. This wasn't a regional variation. This was a completely separate civilization, developed in total isolation, reaching a level of bronze-casting sophistication that surpassed anything else on Earth at the time. And then, around 1000 BC, it was gone, not conquered, not absorbed into another culture. Erased. Every artifact deliberately smashed and burned before being buried underground. Every single one. In 3,000 years of Chinese Bronze Age history, that had never happened before. And it's never happened since. So the question Grok went in asking wasn't, who built this? It was, why did someone need it to disappear? In 2021, a team from the Sichuan Provincial Cultural Relics Institute published a metallurgical analysis of artifacts from the new excavation pits. Pits discovered just the year before, under what used to be a parking lot adjacent to the original site. The results were immediately controversial, and they received almost no Western media coverage. Here's what they found. The Sanxingdui bronze is an alloy. Expected, all ancient bronze is copper and tin. What's not expected is the sourcing. The copper traces to ore deposits in Yunnan province, hundreds of miles south. The tin comes from a different region entirely. The lead from a third location. Someone was moving raw materials across 3 separate long-distance trade routes. and combining them with precise metallurgical knowledge. In 1000 BC, in a region that official history says was isolated, that alone is a problem for the textbooks. But that's not what stopped the analysis team. In a small subset of the tested artifacts, approximately 12%, the trace element analysis returned something unexpected: iridium. Iridium is one of the rarest elements on Earth. It does not occur naturally in Chinese ore deposits at detectable concentrations. The primary terrestrial sources of iridium are volcanic events and meteor impacts. The published paper flagged this result in a trace element table, footnoted it as requiring further investigation. No further investigation has been published. The footnote is still open. Grok's cross-reference produced one additional finding. Comparable iridium concentrations in ancient bronze have been documented in exactly 2 other archaeological contexts worldwide. Both are sites where researchers have proposed contact with extraterrestrial material. I want to be precise about what that means and what it doesn't mean. It doesn't prove contact with anything. What it does is something quieter and more disturbing. It means the raw material in these masks came from somewhere that the entire geological survey of ancient China cannot account for. And the people who built them knew exactly how to work with it. Between 2020 and 2022, Chinese archaeologists excavated 6 additional sacrificial pits at Sanxingdui, announced with fanfare, national pride, state media coverage. But one finding from those excavations caused a 3-day halt in the dig. Pit 8. A bronze altar, a complete ritual structure nearly 2 meters tall, depicting a layered cosmology. 3 tiers. At the bottom, mountains, rendered with geological precision. Ridges, valleys, slopes carved in bronze with a level of naturalistic detail that has no parallel in any Bronze Age culture. In the middle, human figures, postures of ceremony or offering, hands raised. At the top, figures that are not human, the same protruding eyes as the masks, extended arms, but with their palms flat, fingers spread, facing downward. Grok analyzed that specific gesture against a database of ritualistic postures from 200 ancient cultures. The closest match, statistically not a direct copy, appears in ancient Mesopotamian cylinder seal imagery, used to depict beings descending from an upper realm into a lower one. Sanxingdui had no contact with Mesopotamia. The artistic traditions share nothing else. But the gesture, palms down, descending from above, maps onto the same meaning across 2 cultures that never met. Something was coming down. The altar was built to record it. The question the excavation team would not ask in print: what was it? Among the artifacts from the 2020 excavations, silk fragments, some of the oldest ever found. This is notable. Silk production is ancient in China. What was wrapped inside the silk fragments is the problem. A piece of carved ivory, and carved into its surface, a human face. Large, prominent nose, deep-set eyes, features that anthropologists, consulted informally by the dig team, described as, and I'm quoting a field note here, non-East Asian in morphology. The ivory itself was identified as African elephant ivory. In a sealed pit, in landlocked Sichuan, in 1000 BC. The conventional Silk Road, the trade network connecting China to the Mediterranean, is dated to approximately 200 BC. The Sanxingdui site is more than 800 years before that. Someone moved an object from Africa to the interior of southwest China. 8 centuries before the trade route that made such movement possible is supposed to have existed. Either the Silk Road is 800 years older than we think, or something else was moving goods across the ancient world, something we have no record of. And in both cases, every map of ancient connectivity we've ever drawn is wrong. Every Bronze Age civilization of comparable sophistication developed writing, without exception. The Shang, oracle bones, Mesopotamia, cuneiform. The Indus Valley, a script we still haven't fully decoded. The Minoans, linear A. Every one of them, at this level of technical complexity, found a way to leave text. Sanxingdui left none. Not a single symbol that can be identified as proto-writing anywhere across thousands of artifacts from a site that was clearly an administrative and religious center. Archaeologists have offered explanations. Perhaps they wrote on perishable materials, bamboo, wood, silk, that didn't survive. Possible. But here's what Grok flagged about that theory. The bronze casting process at Sanxingdui required coordination of raw material supply chains across hundreds of miles. The altar in Pit 8 required engineering precision that implies planning and specification. You cannot run a civilization of that complexity without some form of recorded information, unless you have a different way of storing it. A way we haven't found yet, or a way that was deliberately removed when everything else was burned. The missing writing isn't an absence, it's a decision. To be direct, mainstream archaeology does not ignore Sanxingdui. The Chinese Academy of Social Sciences has dedicated enormous resources to the site. Hundreds of peer-reviewed papers exist. This is one of the most studied Bronze Age sites in Asia. The official consensus: Sanxingdui was the capital of the ancient Shu Kingdom, a sophisticated regional state that developed independently in the Sichuan basin, with its own artistic tradition centered on a deity associated with the mythological figure Kong. The site was abandoned around 1000 BC, possibly due to flooding and political collapse. The burning and burial of artifacts was a ritual act of closure. The protruding eyes represent Kong, who, in ancient texts written centuries later, is described as having eyes that protruded vertically. The ivory arrived via early river trade networks. The iridium is a natural compositional variation under investigation. The Mesoamerican parallels are coincidence. This is a defensible position. Parts of it are most certainly true. But the deliberate destruction of the artifacts cannot be explained by flood or political collapse. In every other Bronze Age culture, including the Shang, which collapsed violently, ritual objects were preserved or repurposed. They were never systematically smashed, burned, and buried. This pattern exists at no comparable site in Chinese history. Calling it a ritual act of closure doesn't explain why closure required obliteration. The complete absence of writing cannot be explained by perishable materials alone, not at this administrative scale, not with this level of metallurgical precision. And Kong, the king with protruding eyes, is himself described in texts written 1,500 years after Sanxingdui as being not of this world. The official explanation and the mystery it's trying to contain are made of the same material. They just refuse to look at each other. When we fed Grok the complete data set, every excavation report, the metallurgical studies, the ivory findings, the altar structure, the iridium data, the Olmec geometric parallels, the destruction pattern, and asked for the single most coherent explanation of all the evidence simultaneously, it returned something no academic paper has been willing to publish directly. The Sanxingdui civilization was not an isolated local development. It was a node, a connection point in a network of cultural and material exchange that predates every network we have mapped by centuries. A network that moved African ivory into landlocked China, copper from Yunnan, iridium from an unidentified source, artistic ideas that mirror Mesoamerican iconography, and a ritual cosmology that describes beings descending from above, in a gesture that Mesopotamia also knew. These things did not happen by accident. They did not happen by coincidence. Something connected the ancient world in ways we do not have a map for. Grok's language in the output was careful. The existing evidence, analyzed without ideological constraints, cannot be fully accounted for by any current historical model. The data requires a model that doesn't exist yet. That is not a conspiracy. That is a data gap. And data gaps have two possible explanations. Either we haven't found the evidence yet, or someone made sure we wouldn't. There's one more thing, and it's the reason I hesitated before making this video. The 6 new pits excavated between 2020 and 2022 have not been fully published. A significant portion of the artifact catalog, including what was found in the deepest layers of Pit 7, remains classified under China's cultural heritage protection laws. The official statement from the Sichuan Cultural Relics Bureau: findings are still being assessed. That assessment has been ongoing for 4 years. 4 years to assess a Bronze Age archaeological find is not a timeline, it's a policy. We don't know what's in the deepest layer of Pit 7. The researchers who excavated it know. The government ministry that classified it knows. And they have chosen for 4 years not to tell the world. Whatever Sanxingdui was, whoever built it, whatever they depicted in those faces, whatever came down from the sky in those extended bronze hands, the full story has not been told. And the fact that the government of 1.4 billion people is still deciding how to tell it, or whether to tell it at all, should tell you something. There's a question I keep returning to after running this analysis. Every civilization leaves a story about itself. The Shang left oracle bones, the Egyptians left pyramid texts, the Sumerians left cuneiform tablets. Every culture, at every level of sophistication, found a way to say, "We were here. We believed this. We mattered." Sanxingdui left masks, thousands of them, smashed, burned, buried face down. That is not how you preserve a legacy. That is how you erase a witness. Maybe the destruction was not an ending. Maybe it was a transmission, a deliberate act by people who understood that what they had seen, or built, or encountered was too dangerous to leave in plain sight. Maybe they burned the evidence because the evidence, in the wrong hands, would be catastrophic. Maybe the masks are not portraits of gods. Maybe they are portraits of something that came and will come again. And the people of Sanxingdui who knew this chose to bury the record rather than leave a map. We dug it up anyway. We just haven't understood what we're looking at yet.